Hi, and welcome to Dee Dee Talks, the Art of Specialty Lenses. Welcome to our show. Today, we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Tom Quinn. Tom, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you've done in your career.
Well, Dee Dee, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is going to be fun. So I'm a practitioner in Athens, Ohio. I graduated from the Ohio State University College of Optometry, did their residency program back in the day when it was one of the only residency programs, Dee Dee. So it gives you some idea how long I've been around. And then set up practice with my wife in Athens, and we have a group practice, and I've been here for a long time.
I'll leave
people guessing how long that is. But one of my passions is to talk about presbyopic contact lens correction. And you know why, Dee Dee?
Because you're a presbyope.
I'm a presbyope. Not only that, I'm a selfish presbyope. So I'm always wanting it to be better. So I'm always looking for little tricks of the trade to enhance visual performance with multifocal. So it's fun to share some ideas on what I've learned.
Yeah, and I thought I was an expert in multifocals until I became a presbyope.
It changes the whole dynamic, doesn't it? Yes, it does.
So, all right, Tom, I'm just going to kick around a few questions with you.
Okay.
How do you feel multifocal lenses are best utilized in the industry, and have you seen that change in the last few years?
Dee Dee, this is one of my great frustrations, actually. I mean, there's so many people in the population that are presbyopic, and the numbers are growing. I hear numbers anywhere from 25 to 50% of the population. It's a ton of people. Let's leave it at that. And only like 10% are wearing multifocal lenses. I'm stoked to change that. It's not changing quickly. I have a lot of faith in the young people out there. I get the opportunity to go speak at a lot of the schools, and we do multifocal workshops. In fact, I just did one 2 days ago at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. And at the end, we had a wrap up. And the first question I asked them, I said, how many people had success fitting a multifocal contact lens today? And Dee Dee, every hand went up. So
That's
I think
fabulous.
the young people are open to the idea that we can do better than monovision. We can do better than contacts with readers over top. And they're poised to take off. So I'm hopeful for the future.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I had an experience today, as a matter of fact, doing a consult with a practitioner that was learning to ask the right questions. You know, when you're interviewing a patient for multifocals, there's certain questions you have to ask and information that you have to gather to pick the right design. And I think that's really super important whenever you're talking about that. So you have to know the designs that are out there.
Well, yeah, not only that, you know the designs that are out there. You have to know your patients. Mm-hmm. And we do. It's one of the great things about what we do. We get to know our patients. We know what sports their kids are playing and so forth. So understanding both pieces of that puzzle, we're in a perfect position to put the match together. And oftentimes multifocals are the best solution. They just don't know about it. So we do have to step up and recommend it.
And are you seeing multifocals going on patients now that are younger? I know we use it sometimes for orthokeratology, for myopia management, but are you seeing new or earlier presbyopes go into multifocal lenses earlier?
That's a great question, Dee Dee. In my experience, we want to get them when they're first having symptoms. If we get them before they really have symptoms and try to transition into multifocals, sometimes that's a high hurdle for them to get over. But if they have symptoms and then we introduce them in the multifocal lenses and now it relieves that symptom, now we have a success. But we do have to position them for success. You want to talk about that for a minute, how to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So first of all, you have to set a realistic expectation. We all know that, but how do we do that? When I talk to my colleagues, how do you approach multifocal contact lenses when you present that as an option? Too often I hear things that essentially are like, well, they're more complicated. They take longer to fit. I'm going to charge you more. Would you like to do that? I mean, that doesn't sound appealing, right? And we do that because we're afraid of overpromising.
Right.
So I find if I use what I call the sandwich approach, it helps me communicate the meat that needs to be communicated, but still leaves a positive feeling in the patient. And this is how the sandwich approach goes. Okay. You say something positive, you throw the meat in, you finish up with something positive. So for example, let's say we have a 43-year-old who's worn single vision contact lenses for a long time, and now they're in your chair with new complaints of near vision, blur. So you say, okay, Steve, I got great news for you. You're doing well with your current contact lenses. I know you're having trouble with your close vision. We've got tools that can help you with that. Now, those tools sometimes require other things to help them. For example, if you're in a dimly lit restaurant, you might need some extra light or magnification. But I believe I can meet most of your visual needs most of the time with what we call multifocal contact lenses. Would you like to pursue it? Did you hear how I sandwiched it in there? And I find that gives people the information they need, but still leaves them optimistic and hopeful about multifocal performance.
Yeah, and it is positive. And I think that's one of the, the things that patients sometimes come into the office with preconceived notions. And I think if you're giving them and keeping that in a positive light, it does really help them move forward.
And Dee Dee, it's not just hype. I mean, science backs us up on this. All in the early 2000s, there were tons of studies comparing monovision to multifocals, and 7 out of 10 patients preferred multifocals. So we got that to bring us confidence as we present the option to patients.
Absolutely. And the binocularity of vision, keeping both of those eyes working together at the same time. So how are you seeing the scope of multifocal lenses changing for the future?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the technology that we have today allows us, particularly with gas perm lenses, to do things we could never do in the past. Used to be we could only manipulate the back surface of the lens, and there were limitations in how much ad we could create with that lens and so forth. Now we can manipulate the front surface. Many benefits of that. One is we don't potentially foul up the shape of the cornea, which then after contact lens removal, they have blur with glasses. But also, if they're already adapted to a single vision lens, we just keep the same fit, assuming it's a good fit. And we just slap an A-straight curve on the front. It's so simple and so straightforward. In fact, Ed Bennett, just in this last issue of Contact Lens Spectrum, I think he said that something like 78% of all GP multifocals fit today are fit empirically. So you don't need to get all complicated with diagnostic fitting sets. So it can be really straightforward. I think that's a huge leap forward. So we don't have the concerns of time investment in doing a diagnostic fitting.
Well, and doing a lot of empirical fitting from the consultation side, like I do, the more information we get, the better. So if we can get lid structure and we can get, those types of things as well, pupil size and such as that, it helps us get a better design the first time. Right. So I think that's really important to make sure that you've got the information. If you're going to do empirical fitting, get the information to the consultant so they can help you do that.
Great point. How often do you get pictures to help you?
More and more now. Now we didn't used to get a lot of pictures, but we started asking for them, and doctors are actually starting proactively to send us pictures of eyes and lids. And so if, one picture of both eyes can give us a ton of information about lid structure and pupil size and all of these things that we really do need to fit these lenses. So it's great to have that.
Dee Dee, is HVID something you guys would like to have?
HVID is always important with any specialty lens. HVID is important because it not only tells us a lot about the size of the lens that we're going to be using, but also if we're dealing with a very large cornea, sometimes the E values of the corneas are important as well, especially if we're going to be working with an aspheric design.
Great.
Yeah. So what would be your best tips for integrating multifocal lenses into a practice, and kind of the differences between soft versus gas perm multifocals?
Well, first of all, you got to get the entire practice team on board. Because if I recommend a multifocal lens and the staff comes in and they're not enthused about it, that's going to come through to the patient. So everyone has to be on board. And how you get everybody on board is in our practice, every month we have a practice meeting. Every week we meet with our team leaders to talk about office flow and other issues that come up. But every month we meet with the entire staff and we cover a lot of office policy stuff, but we also take advantage of that time to always educate our staff And we'll talk to them about myopia management. We'll talk to them about multifocal contact lenses and the value that comes with providing that service to these many, many growing numbers of presbyopes. So that's the number one. And that way you're all speaking with one voice heading in the same direction. And then once you do embrace that, you have to, as we talked about earlier, you have to suggest multifocal correction because people don't know about it. So you have to bring it up, which I know we are creatures of habit, Dee Dee. And if we don't have the habit of thinking that way, we don't bring it up when we have a missed opportunity. So that's really important.
Well, and I too, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I think too, if your staff are wearing multifocal lenses, if you have staff that are presbyopes and they're wearing multifocal lenses, the patient's going to go, well, how are you seeing up close like that?
Absolutely.
And that's a big piece. And you know how strong I am on education. I think education for the staff, a well-trained staff is what keeps your practice running and running well and like a well-oiled machine. Right. So in any aspect.
Another piece of the puzzle there with staff is that I really think it's important that the doctor make a firm recommendation rather than saying, well, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this. I mean, it's confusing. We're in the perfect position to make a recommendation. So we make a firm recommendation. We lay the groundwork then for the staff to come in and discuss maybe the finances. Some docs don't mind talking finances. I hate talking money. So I like to lay the groundwork and have the staff come in and present it in a positive way. But I think that's really important. Another key factor is helping the patient understand what success is with the multifocal correction, because I alluded to this earlier that the studies that showed us that 7 out of 10 people preferred multifocal lenses also showed us that the most challenging time with multifocal contact lens correction is near vision and low light. Mm-hmm. So that does not mean throw the baby out with the bathwater. We recognize that. We practice some no surprise approach and we tell the patient, these are going to be awesome for you, but in a dimly lit restaurant, you may need extra light or magnification. Dee Dee, everybody carries a light in their pocket now with their cell phone, right? So it's not a high bar to reach to have a light on hand. So then they're not surprised when that situation comes up. And now some of my colleagues say, oh gosh, you got to do all this stuff. It's such a hassle with contact lenses. Dee Dee, no. It's a hassle because they're presbyopic. Because presbyopic spectacle wearers, we have to have similar conversations.
Absolutely.
Like you have to hold your head a certain way and all this stuff. And if anybody in our office says they work on a computer 6 hours or more, I'm talking to them about computer glasses. Mm-hmm. The point being, if you're presbyopic, you're going to need multiple tools to meet all your needs. Contact lenses and glasses. And I think we forget that we have the conversation with glasses, whereas we're just so used to it. And we think, oh, contacts are more of a hassle. No. We have to have that conversation regardless of the form of correction. It's because of presbyopic.
Well, too, and I always had my staff listen to the opticians. When the opticians were selling a pair of glasses or selling lenses, listen to the terminology and the things that they use, because it's exactly the same for a contact lens, only it's closer to the eye.
Right.
And it really does help the patient understand. They educate the patient very, very well when they're talking about presbyopic glasses. And I think it's important for that to come through from your technicians as well.
Agree. You know, I talked about setting the patient's expectations so they understand what success is and that other tools may be necessary. It's also important for us as the provider to understand what success is with a multifocal lens. And let me cite a study that was done by Jill Woods up in Canada. She looked at monovision patients, comparing them to multifocal patients. And when she looked at objective measures, that is how well they read the acuity chart, monovision won. But when she looked at subjective measures, asking the patient, which form of correction do you prefer to wear when you're driving, when you're working on the computer, when you're doing those things you do all day, every day, they preferred multifocal correction. Mm-hmm. So that what I take from this is that when I'm trying to decide whether I should make a change to a multifocal contact lens, I don't base it on the acuity, I mean, within reason. I base it on what the patient tells me. So it's subjectively driven more than objectively driven as to whether I should make a modification. Because if they're happy and I make a change, I may upset the apple cart. It's all about finding that right balance.
Well, and do you find sometimes that patients, I won't say lie to you, but think they know what they want, but they don't really know what they want until they get the lenses?
Okay, explain that to me. What do you mean? Give me an
example. In my experience working with patients, if you talk to a patient about what their needs are and what they want, they'll say, I want to see great for distance and I want to see great for near. I don't care about intermediate. So you set their lenses that way, and then they come back in and go, well, I can't see anything. I can't see my phone.
Yeah.
So I don't think they always know exactly what they're looking for. So we kind of have to, especially a new wearer, whenever we're picking a design for them.
Well, I always tell patients multifocal lens fitting is a process. Mm-hmm. So really what we do is gather information, some of which we've already talked about, and come up with what we think, I don't want to say guess, what we, based on experience and science, think will work best for them. But really the proof in the pudding is when they go out into their world, work at their distances under their lighting conditions with their tasks, then that's the true test. And then they come back and report to us how they're doing, and then we adjust it. So, but I like to let them know it's a process, so that when they come back, and if I have to make an adjustment, they don't lose confidence in me.
Exactly.
I say this is part of the process.
Exactly. So do you think that fitting like GP multifocals is a lost art or something that we can regain?
It's a great question. I don't think it's a lost art. I think it's an underutilized art. It's not that hard. It's just with all the wonderful developments we've had in soft lenses, material chemistry down to multifocal optics, we've really gotten excited about that and embraced it, which is wonderful. But this second cousin over here that's been ignored has an awful lot to offer. There was a study done, I think, back in the early 200s that looked at a comparison of monovision, soft multifocals, GP multifocals, comparing it to progressive spectacle lenses. Mm-hmm. The aspheric multifocal GP lens was really close, comparable to progressive spectacles. Yep. Soft multifocals weren't quite as good, at least back then. They've gotten better since. Of course, monovision was way worse. So, so GP multifocals are the underutilized tool that we have that, as we've talked about, you can fit them empirically. They're not that hard to fit. We just have to bring our game up and start doing it.
All about attitude.
All about attitude.
So I know you've done a lot of education and you work with a lot of residents. What tool would you give, or what tip would you give to new practitioners that are just getting into the real world of specialty lenses to get out there and make themselves successful?
Okay, I got two. One is be ready to fail first, or have to work through it. So don't be discouraged if your first attempt, you don't get where you want to go. The other is utilize the staff, the consultant at the lab. They know their designs in and out. They know the nuances of it. They want you to succeed. Absolutely. So they're going to be there to help you. And I must tell you, I graduated from a residency program. I thought, when I call the lab, I don't want to admit I don't know how to do something, because they won't think highly of me. Man, I got over that in a heartbeat, and it's the best thing I ever did. Hey, help me out here, and they will.
Exactly. Yeah, and you learn a lot that way too, and we learn from our doctors every day, just like our doctors learn from us. So
so then the next time I run in that situation, well, I remember talking to Dee about this one. She told me this, and it worked. So as you get more experience, your need to lean on the consultant maybe will reduce, but they're always there for you. Take advantage of it.
It's a fun partnership.
Yeah. And you one of the things I love about what we do is we're a small family.
Yep.
And we know each other. I tell you, that you'd be hard pressed to find a group of individuals that are as friendly and as engaging
True.
That's what we have in the eye care field. I love the eye care industry.
Yeah,
And so,
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so just embrace the part of the family that's at the lab. They're ready and waiting to help you.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because I know, by knowing you as long as I have, that you're a little bit of a performer. And since the name of our show is The Art of Specialty Lenses, and we try to tie those things in together, I really want to know a little bit and want to hear some examples of some of the things that you have done with your artistic talents, the multitude of them that they are.
Well, Dee Dee, thank you for asking me. I will tell you that my kids joke and they say, Dad will sing a song at the slightest provocation. Well, you've just given me a very big, broad provocation. So I've done a lot with musical theater. I've been in shows like The Music Man, Fiddler on the Roof, Oklahoma, The Sound of Music, and The Wizard of Oz. And in The Wizard of Oz, I was the Tin Man. And I think that's typecasting because I'm kind of clumsy, you know, so, he's perfect for the Tin Man. Would you like me to sing a little bit of the Tin Man song?
Absolutely, I would.
Okay. When a man's an empty kettle, he should be on his mettle, and yet I'm torn apart. Just because I'm presuming that I could be kind of human if I only had a heart. I'd be tender, I'd be gentle, and awful sentimental regarding love and art. I'd be friends with the sparrows and the boy that shoots the arrows if I only had a heart. That gives you a little idea.
And I have to say that was my favorite, the first play I ever saw, and my favorite movie growing up as a kid. So you just brought back some really great memories for me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, Tom, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us today. I just absolutely enjoy talking to you anytime that we're together. So thank you so very much.
Dee Dee, you're special. Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I also want to say thank you for watching our show today. And I also want to thank ABB for being a sponsor for this program. Thanks and have a great day. We'll see you on the next one.